Valheim is an incredibly complex game, but as many of you will know, I have made an absolute ton of content on Valheim over the last year or so, including lots of tutorials and different tips and tricks videos and all that kind of stuff. So it always amazes me that so many people are still able to come up with all these different tips that I actually didn't know in the game, or sometimes are ones that I maybe forgot about and haven't used in a long time. So in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing some of the tips that you guys have suggested. So this is going to be tips that I get in my comments in previous videos. Now, if there's anything that I've missed out or you think would be a good tip to add, then please do let me know down in the comments and you might be featuring in one of these future videos. But for now, let's jump into today's tips. So the first tip comes from Game, and this is actually an extension of a tip I did in the previous video, which was talking about things you can do in cheat commands. Now, as I said in the previous video, if you guys want a video tutorial on how to do cheats, I'll put that down in the description and the comments to this video. But essentially, once you've got the dev commands set up, here is what you can do. So you type in bind, then the key of your choice. So I'll use the example that Eri gave here, J, and then we'll put in there wave, and we'll just enter that in. Now, when I press J, as you'll see, I wave. Now this is super useful because typing in /wave doesn't sound like a big deal, but anyone who's played on a Valheim server will know that it's a lot easier to just, if we can just do this and interact better with other people, which is great because multiplayer servers are definitely very fun. Now I do have a server myself that you guys can join. I'm not going to say too much about it here, but if you are interested, there'll be a link to that in the description. So the next tip is from Reedy and says about how you can use your spear to throw at birds. Now I will say that this does take a bit of getting used to. I find with the spear, you have to aim a lot higher than you think. Now, I don't use the spear tons in games, so maybe that's why, I'm not used to it, and maybe if you guys are, then, that's the thing. But basically, this was building off a tip that I gave in the last video about how you can use the abyssal harpoon and use that to get feathers from birds rather than other arrows. But the spear works very well too, and is an earlier game option before you get the kite in for the abyssal harpoon, so definitely worth a mention for this video. Next up, we have this tip from Uncaring Bear, which is all about leveling ground. Now, as you guys know, when you level ground, if you're just stood here and you left click with your hoe, it'll try to level the ground that you're looking at to the level that you are stood at, like within reason. So if I'm here and I try to level, it'll try to level to this bit right here, right? And it'll do that as we click around. Now, if we use the shift button, then what will happen is it will actually try to level the ground to the level that you're pointing at. So basically, if I'm looking at this bit right here, I can shift and click and it will actually raise it up a little bit like that. Whereas if I let go of shift and I try to level, you see how it brings it down because it's trying to make it the same as the level I'm stood at. So using shift here again, this is going back up again because it's trying to level to the area of the ground around it. Now, what this means is that if you get this right, and you do spend a lot of time doing it because it will take you some time, you can get really smooth areas of land. So if that's something you're trying to do, then this little shift click is definitely a good one for you. And when I read this tip, I realized that I sort of was aware of this tip, but I don't really use it enough in game when I'm trying to level ground. And I think I want to bring it to the forefront of my mind and maybe your minds too, which is why I thought I'd include it in today's video. This next tip, as you can see here, was suggested by many people. So clearly something that everybody else seems to know that I didn't, but I absolutely had to mention it because I didn't cover it in my last video. But essentially, when you try to split a stack of items, so if you're trying to get out a certain number of items here, you can do this and you can drag the bar around, but you can also just type in the number. So if I hit 4, if I hit 2, if I hit 3, it'll do that for you. So this is actually quite a useful thing to know about, and it works with double digits incidentally as well. So I can do here, if I wanted 10 of these, I can type it in and get the 10 out. So that way you can obviously get to the exact right number that you want. Now, as I mentioned in the last video, what I like to do is if I'm here and I need 3 of these, I'll be like, boom, and I'll try and get it right as a little fun little mini game. So that's another way of doing it, but certainly using the number pad could be useful for certain people and definitely warranted a mention in today's video. This next tip from Brian Wood is quite a useful one here in the crypts, but it can be used in other situations too. Now, as you see, these blobs here are aggroed and they're trying to get to me, but they can't. I've mined back some of these muddy scrap piles right here, but not enough that they're able to get through. And this can happen a lot in crypts, and it's a good way of exploring them because you can make sure the draggers and other things can't get through as well. So what you can do then is use your stag breaker, go up here and just hit. And because it does an area of effect thing, even though you're not able to get through to hit them, you're hitting sort of on this side of the muddy scrap pile, it's still doing damage to them, as you can see. And we've basically cleared out that room without even having to go in there or really risking ourselves too much about getting hurt and such. So a very useful tip there. Thank you for that one, Brian, and definitely worthy of today's video. So last but not least, we have the tip here from Morten Meyer, and he's saying that basically when you're getting kiting on a Leviathan, as I'm doing right here, when it starts to do what it's doing now, like it's about to go down and go under, if you press escape and log out and then relog, apparently this stops it from going down. Now, I didn't know this and I haven't actually tested this. I'm just doing it for this video. But if you're listening to me right now, it works, because if it doesn't work, I won't include it in the video. So that's how you know. Let's log back in and see this thing in action. I want to test, like, you know, how long does it work for us all? Like, when we come back in, does it fully reset or does it just slow it down? It'll be interesting to see. Okay, so here we are, we're back in. I'm not sure why it's nighttime. When I use the cheat commands, I always set it to daytime. But what I'm going to do is just keep mining on him again until he goes down again, and then double check that this works for a second time. And basically right now, obviously I'll just be in like normal mode. So if it works now, then it works, kind of thing. Whereas I don't think the cheat mode have anything to do with it. So I'm sure this works, but I'll just test it one more time for you guys. Okay, you can see here he's getting annoyed and he's about to go back down into the water. So we're going to log out once more and test this for a second time. And once again, it's worked. You can see no bubbling around the water here, and he's just happy chilling. So he's just waiting, and we could get a lot more kiting that way. So this is extremely useful. It is a little bit cheaty, I suppose, but you know, not everyone has a load of time to go around finding loads of these things to get enough kiting. So I can understand there being a reasonable use for this. Now, I will say that I would imagine if you're playing on a server, this wouldn't work. This is probably just a little trick for single player worlds, but nonetheless, a useful tip. So a good place to end the video. Thank you so much to everyone who commented and made this video possible. The dad jokes will of course be coming. As I said, if you want to suggest anything to potentially be in a future video, I'd love to hear it down in the comments. And if you're interested in joining my server or Discord, any of that stuff, then all of that is linked in the description. But for now, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Why don't bears wear shoes? Because they have bare feet. What does a vegetable wear to the beach? A zucchini. What type of sandals do frogs wear? Open-toed sandals. Why didn't the chef slice the cheese? She had greater plans. What is a cheesemaker's favorite music? R&B.